setting her grandmother's diamond sooner than expected. 5 years of marriage deserved something special. When I pulled into the restaurant parking lot, I spotted Melanie's car immediately, parked next to Jake's unmistakable red Mustang with the custom plates. Through the tinted windows of his car, I could see them. My wife's head thrown back in laughter, her hand on his chest, their lips meeting in a kiss that wasn't meant for strangers to see. I sat there, engine idling, watching them for exactly 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Then I took a photo, turned off the car, and walked away with the small velvet box still in my pocket. That was the moment I decided my wife wouldn't just leave me, she would lose everything. My name is Ethan Harper. Once upon a time, I was Staff Sergeant Harper, Marine Corps combat engineer. I specialized in route clearance, finding and neutralizing IEDs so other Marines could travel safely. I was good at my job, patient, methodical. I could spot the slightest disturbance in the dirt that others would miss. That attention to detail saved lives. Melanie and I met during my second leave from Afghanistan. She was tending bar at a place near Camp Lejeune, all bright smiles and honey blonde hair. I wasn't the only Marine trying to get her attention that night, but I was the one she gave her number to. "You're different," she told me later. "You actually listen when I talk." We dated for 8 months before I proposed. When I deployed again, she wrote me every week. Care packages arrived like clockwork. She sent photos of the small house she'd found for us, asking my opinion on paint colors and furniture. In my darkest moments out there, thoughts of Melanie kept me going. "Just 9 more months," she'd write, "and then we start our real life together." Our wedding was small but perfect. Her in a simple white dress, me in dress blues. When we said our vows, I meant every word, in sickness and in health, for better or worse, till death do us part. For 3 years we were happy, or at least I thought we were. I made staff sergeant. She started a small social media consulting business. We talked about children, planned vacations, built a life. Then came my 4th deployment. 2 months in, our convoy hit an IED that had been missed during route clearance. I don't remember the explosion. Just waking up in Germany with partial burns on the left side of my face, a broken femur that would never heal quite right, and the new stutter that emerged when my brain tried to form words. Melanie flew to be with me. When she first saw me in the hospital bed, I caught the flash of shock in her eyes before she recovered and smiled. She held my hand, told me everything would be okay, that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Recovery was slow, painful. The physical therapy for my leg was excruciating, but I pushed through it, motivated by the thought of standing tall beside Melanie again. The speech therapy was somehow worse, the frustration of knowing exactly what I wanted to say but having the words catch and stutter on my tongue. Melanie was supportive at first. She'd sit with me during therapy sessions, help me practice my exercises at home. But as weeks turned into months, I noticed the change. The first sign was her impatience. She would finish my sentences when I stuttered, not waiting for me to get the words out myself. Then came the sighs, small, almost imperceptible, when I needed help with buttons or when my leg gave out after a long day. "I'm going to the gym," became her mantra. At first it was 3 times a week, then 5, then every day, sometimes twice. The gym became her escape from me. That's where she met Jake Maddox, personal trainer, fitness influencer, ex-college athlete with 16-pack abs and a jawline like it was carved from granite. He specialized in transformation journeys, turning ordinary people into fitness models through what he called extreme dedication, and what I later discovered were illegal supplements and steroids. I first heard his name 6 months after I returned home. "Jake says I should try this new protein shake," Melanie mentioned casually over dinner. "Jake says I need to focus more on high-intensity interval training. Jake thinks I have potential to compete." I should have seen it then, but I was too focused on my own recovery to notice how her eyes lit up when she mentioned his name. The second sign came when our physical intimacy changed. Melanie stopped initiating. When I reached for her at night, she would stiffen slightly before relaxing into my touch, like she was forcing herself to respond. Sometimes she would turn away, claiming fatigue from her intense workouts. "Jake says rest is just as important as training," she'd murmur, her back to me. The third sign was her phone. It used to sit carelessly on countertops or tables, often forgotten. Now it was always in her hand, screen tilted away from me. She installed a fingerprint lock. Notifications would ping late at night, and she'd slip away to the bathroom to respond. "Just work stuff," she'd say when I asked. The fourth sign was her friends. Women I'd known for years started looking at me differently when they came over. Their conversations would halt when I entered a room, resuming with forced smiles and changed topics. One night, after several glasses of wine, her friend Cassie slipped up. "Is it hard?" she asked Melanie while I was in the kitchen, not realizing I could hear. "You know, being with him now that he's different?" "Let's talk about it later," Melanie had whispered back. But the worst sign, the one that finally opened my eyes, came on a Tuesday afternoon 4 months ago. I had come home early from a VA appointment to find Melanie and Jake in our kitchen. They weren't touching. They weren't even standing particularly close. But the electricity between them was undeniable. Jake looked me up and down, his eyes lingering on my scars, my slight limp as I moved toward them. "Ethan, this is Jake," Melanie said, her voice overly bright. "He's helping me prep for that fitness competition I told you about." Jake extended his hand. His grip was too firm, a power move. "Heard a lot about you, man," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you for your service." The way he said it, like I was something to be pitied, a broken toy, made my jaw clench, but I shook his hand and nodded. "Nice to meet you," I managed, hating the stutter that emerged under his scrutinizing gaze. Jake's smirk was subtle, but I caught it. So did Melanie, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Jake was just leaving," she said quickly. As I watched him walk to his car, I saw Melanie watching him too, her eyes following the confident stride I could no longer manage. That night, I heard her in the bathroom, voice low as she spoke on the phone. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. I know, I miss you too. Soon, I promise." The breaking point came on an otherwise ordinary Sunday morning. Melanie had gone for her morning cardio, which now always lasted at least 3 hours, and I was alone in our bedroom looking for a specific tie for an upcoming VA interview. Her iPad chimed with a message notification on the nightstand. I wouldn't have looked. I respected her privacy despite my growing suspicions, but the preview caught my eye. From, "Jake sent the video to everyone. They can't stop laughing at him trying to..." The message cut off there. My stomach twisted as I picked up the iPad. It was unlocked. Melanie must have forgotten to close it before leaving. The message was in a group chat titled Operation Crippled Clown. With shaking hands, I scrolled up. There I was, struggling to button my dress shirt before a doctor's appointment last week. A video, clearly taken by Melanie without my knowledge, zoomed in on my fingers as they fumbled with each button. My audio played in the background. Damn it!" as I dropped a button and had to start again. Jake had responded, "This is why I tell you guys never to skip finger day." Someone named Cassie wrote, "OMG, how do you even sleep in the same bed?" Melanie's response, "I barely do anymore. He's like a zombie that can't finish a sentence." I kept scrolling, my vision blurring. There were more videos. Me struggling with physical therapy exercises at home, me stuttering through a phone call with my mother, me having a nightmare, thrashing in bed as Melanie narrated in a mocking whisper. But worse than the videos were the messages, intimate details of our marriage, our sex life, or lack thereof, laid bare for their entertainment. Melanie describing how she zones out when I touch her, how she fantasizes about Jake to get through it. Jake. Once you've had a real man, you can't go back to a broken one. Melanie. Truth. I swear I hear him breathing and I get turned off. There were photos too. Melanie and Jake in what was clearly a hotel room. Melanie wearing lingerie I'd never seen. Jake shirtless, Melanie kissing his chest, messages planning their meetups, coordinating lies to tell me. And then, the final knife twist. A voice message from Melanie. If I hide his meds, he gets real jumpy. It's hilarious. Last week I moved his anti-anxiety pills, and he tore the house apart looking for them. Almost had a full breakdown. Jake says we should record it next time. They had been deliberately triggering my PTSD for entertainment. I sat there for a long time, the iPad in my hands, reading every message, watching every video, examining every photo. 3 years of marriage reduced to a cruel joke. The woman I'd loved, who'd vowed to stand by me, was the architect of my humiliation. That's when something inside me changed. The hurt transformed into something cold and precise. I remembered who I was before the IED, methodical, strategic, patient. I'd cleared paths through minefields. I could navigate this betrayal. I carefully took screenshots of everything, sent them to my email, then erased all evidence of my snooping. I placed the iPad exactly as I'd found it and left the room. That night, when Melanie returned from meal prep with the gym crew, I smiled and asked about her day. I kissed her cheek when she offered it instead of her lips. I pretended I didn't know that my life had become a spectator sport for her and her lover. Because now I had a mission. And like any good combat engineer, I needed time to prepare. My revenge wouldn't be swift or emotional. It would be calculated, comprehensive, and complete. I would dismantle their lives with the same precision I once used to dismantle explosives. First, I needed to gather more evidence. The group chat had given me a starting point, but I needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal and find any vulnerabilities I could exploit. I installed a keylogger on our home computer, the one Melanie used for her social media consulting work. Within days, I had her passwords to everything: email, social media, cloud storage, banking. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Jake wasn't just a personal trainer. He was running a side business selling illegal steroids and testosterone to his clients, including numerous underage kids trying to get their dream body. Melanie was helping him manage this operation, handling the money through her legitimate business accounts to obscure the source. They were planning to leave me, but not until they had enough saved for Jake to open his own gym. My disability benefits were helping fund their dream while they mocked me behind my back. I documented everything methodically. Financial records showing suspicious transfers, text messages arranging drug deals disguised as supplement consultations, emails between Melanie and Jake discussing how to hide their income from taxes. But I needed more than digital evidence. I needed witnesses, people who would corroborate my story when the time came. I reached out to a Marine buddy who now worked in journalism, specializing in exposés of health and fitness scams. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in divorce cases involving financial fraud. And most importantly, I connected with a detective in the local PD's narcotics division who had been trying to crack down on performance-enhancing drugs being sold to high school athletes. My plan had 3 phases. Prepare myself. While gathering evidence, I would accelerate my recovery without Melanie noticing. I increased my physical therapy sessions, telling her they were PTSD support groups. I found an experimental speech therapy program through the VA that yielded remarkable results when I fully committed to it. I started strength training during the hours she was with Jake, build the case, compile irrefutable evidence of their emotional abuse, financial crimes, and drug dealing. Create a comprehensive package for law enforcement, complete with timestamps, locations, and supporting documentation. Spring the trap. Wait for the perfect moment, a public event where their humiliation would be complete. Then bring it all crashing down at once. For 4 months, I lived a double life. To Melanie and Jake, I remained the struggling, oblivious husband, deteriorating physically and mentally. They grew bolder, sloppier. Melanie would invite Jake over when she thought I was at therapy. They sometimes had sex in our bed while I was supposedly at VA appointments. Meanwhile, the real me was getting stronger, more focused. My speech improved dramatically with intensive therapy. My leg would never be perfect, but daily targeted exercises had substantially reduced my limp. I could now walk without a cane when I concentrated. The trigger for the final phase came when I discovered they were planning a launch party for Jake's new brand of all-natural supplements, products I knew contained illegal substances. The party was invitation only, at an upscale venue downtown. Melanie had RSVP'd as a single attendee. The invite she forwarded to their group chat included a note from Jake, VIP only. Real achievers and the women who deserve them. No weaklings, no war ghosts, no pity projects. They were launching their future on the day of our wedding anniversary. It was perfect. I spent the final week before the party finalizing details. My journalist friend was positioned to publish a comprehensive expose the morning after the event. The narcotics detective had obtained a warrant based on the evidence I'd provided. My lawyer had divorce papers drawn up, along with documentation for a civil lawsuit against Melanie for emotional abuse, defamation, and illegal surveillance. The night of the party arrived. Melanie dressed carefully in our bedroom, wearing a new dress I'd never seen. "Hospital fundraiser?" She lied smoothly when I asked where she was going. "Probably will be late. Don't wait up." I nodded, playing my part one last time. Have fun, I stuttered deliberately, watching her barely concealed wince at my speech. After she left, I transformed. I showered and shaved completely, revealing the full extent of my facial scars rather than hiding them behind the beard I'd grown. I put on my best black suit. I pinned my service medals to my chest. I stood tall, focusing on my posture, the techniques I'd learned to minimize my limp. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a Marine again, not broken, restored. I arrived at the venue 45 minutes after the party started. The bouncer checked the guest list, not finding my name. "I'm with Jake Maddox," I said clearly, no stutter in my voice. "Staff Sergeant Ethan Harper. I believe my wife Melanie is already inside." My confidence and the medals on my chest did their job. He nodded and let me pass. Inside, the party was in full swing. Fitness models and influencers mingled with potential investors. A DJ played pulsing music while promotional videos for Jake's new supplement line played on massive screens. I spotted them immediately. Jake at the center of attention, his arm around Melanie's waist, her head on his shoulder as they laughed with their circle of friends. She wore my grandmother's diamond necklace, the one she'd told me was too old-fashioned to wear anymore. I walked steadily through the crowd. People turned to look, conversations faltering as I passed. I made eye contact with the journalist who had positioned himself near the DJ booth as planned. He nodded almost imperceptibly. Then I reached their circle. Jake saw me first, his expression freezing in mid-laugh. Melanie followed his gaze, her face draining of color. "Hello, everyone," I said clearly, my voice strong and steady. "Sorry I'm late." Jake recovered first, his arm tightening around Melanie. "Ethan, man, what are you doing here? This is a private event." "I know exactly what this event is," I replied, looking directly at him. "It's the beginning of the end." Melanie stepped forward, anger replacing her shock. "You need to leave. You're embarrassing yourself." I smiled. "Actually, I'm just in time for the presentation." I turned and walked to the DJ booth, where my journalist friend was waiting. I handed him the USB drive containing everything, the videos, the messages, the financial records. "Play it all," I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The music stopped. The screens around the room flickered, and then there it was, Melanie's voice, crystal clear through the venue's speaker system. "If I hide his meds, he gets real jumpy. It's hilarious." The crowd fell silent. The video continued, showing screenshots of their group chat, the cruel jokes, the videos they'd taken of me. Then came the evidence of their drug operation, Jake selling steroids to a high school athlete in the parking lot of our gym, Melanie processing payments through her business account. I watched their faces as their private world was exposed. Jake lunged toward the DJ booth, but two men, plainclothes officers who had been waiting for my signal, blocked his path. "Jake Maddox," one said formally, "we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of distribution of controlled substances, tax evasion, and fraud." As they handcuffed him, I walked back to Melanie, who stood frozen in horror, watching her world collapse around her. What have you done?" she whispered, stuttering for the first time in her life. I reached into my pocket and pulled out 3 envelopes. "Divorce papers," I said, handing her the first. "A civil lawsuit for emotional abuse, defamation, and illegal surveillance," I continued, giving her the second. "And documentation showing that the house, which was inherited from my grandfather and is legally in my name alone, has been secured with new locks, effective immediately." Tears streamed down her face. "Ethan, please, I can explain." "No need," I interrupted. "You've explained enough in your videos and messages. By the way, the police have search warrants for your phone, computer, and cloud accounts. I wouldn't try deleting anything." More officers entered the venue, moving through the shocked crowd toward Melanie. One of them approached us. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us for questioning regarding your involvement in Mr. Maddox's illegal activities." As she was led away, I turned to address the stunned crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. As you can see, Jake's supplements aren't as all-natural as advertised. There are FDA agents outside who would like to speak with any athletes or investors involved with this launch. The rest of you might want to check tomorrow's news before associating your brands with either of these individuals." With that, I walked out, standing taller than I had in years. The next morning, the story broke across local news and fitness industry publications. My journalist friend's exposé was comprehensive, detailing not just the illegal supplement operation, but also the systematic emotional abuse I had endured. Jake was denied bail due to the extent of his operation and evidence that he had been planning to flee the country. He eventually pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges in exchange for a reduced sentence, still 8 years in federal prison. His assets were seized, his gym shut down, his social media empire deleted. Melanie avoided criminal charges by cooperating with prosecutors, but the civil consequences were severe. The divorce was finalized quickly, with the judge awarding me everything. The lawsuit for emotional abuse resulted in a judgment that would garnish her wages for years to come. Every brand she had worked with dropped her immediately. In a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, she posted a tearful video online claiming she was also a victim of Jake's manipulation. The internet wasn't kind. The comment sections filled with veterans and their families defending me, fitness industry professionals distancing themselves from her, and former clients demanding refunds for the consulting that had been a front for illegal activities. 2 months after the launch party, I ran into Cassie, Melanie's friend from the group chat, at a coffee shop. She looked away, trying to avoid me, but I approached her table. "Hello, Cassie," I said, deliberately allowing a slight stutter into my speech. She flinched, unable to meet my eyes. "Ethan, I'm so sorry about everything." I sat down across from her. "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." "You've ruined her life," she whispered. "She's living in her sister's basement. No one will hire her." I leaned forward. "She ruined her own life when she decided to mock a wounded veteran for entertainment, when she helped sell steroids to teenagers, when she violated every vow she ever made to me." I stood up, no trace of a limp in my movement. "Actions have consequences, Cassie. Remember that the next time you decide to join an Operation Crippled Clown." As for me, I found peace. The experimental speech therapy program asked me to become a mentor for other veterans with similar injuries. I accepted, finding purpose in helping others reclaim their voices. I sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a cabin near the mountains where I'd always wanted to live. I reconnected with old friends from my unit, no longer ashamed of my scars or occasional stutter. Sometimes people ask if I regret the public nature of my revenge, if I could have just divorced Melanie quietly and moved on. I tell them no, because it wasn't just about Melanie and Jake. It was about showing everyone who had laughed at those videos, who had pitied me or written me off, that wounds don't define strength. 6 months after the launch party disaster, I received a letter from a young Marine recovering at Walter Reed. He'd seen the news story, recognized my name. "You showed me that coming home different doesn't mean coming home defeated," he wrote. "That patience isn't weakness, it's strategy." That letter hangs framed on my wall now, a reminder that sometimes the weight of betrayal can forge you into something stronger than you were before. Melanie thought she was watching me break. She never realized she was watching me reload. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.